Boo! Did I scare you? It is, of course, spooky season right now. With Halloween just around the corner, I thought there'd be no better time than the present to tell you about my top 5 scariest tech horror stories to keep you up at night. So why don't you sit back, try to relax, dim the lights as we jump into number 5. VTEC can't handle your data. We all know VTEC, right? The Chinese toy manufacturer that basically specialises in connected devices for children, such as digital cameras and tablets. Well, back in 2015, the InnoTab had quite the name in the community. There was a lot of people who wanted to hack this device to make it do things it really shouldn't. For example, playing Doom. Well, one British hacker decided he wanted to join the scene and started snooping around some of VTEC's online services and came across planetvtec.com. On the surface, this looked like a website that was just made to advertise and allow users to manage their devices. In the top corner, there was a simple Flash login page, but there was more to this page than met the eye. You see, that login field was susceptible to one of the oldest attacks in the book, an SQL injection. In short, this allows you to inject pieces of code into that particular field, breaking out of that field and changing the database and the server itself. It's pretty scary stuff, and to be honest with you, it was something that SQL had known about and had patched many years beforehand, but apparently somebody at VTEC didn't get the memo. After gaining root access to the servers, he discovered there were 2 main databases. One appeared to just have the names of every adult, as well as their age, address, usernames and passwords all in plain text. But perhaps a little more scarily, there was also all of the names, ages, addresses, usernames and passwords of the children's accounts as well. None of this was encrypted data and was simply just sat inside of a database. What was in the other database, however, was more scary and sinister still. So all of these devices are connected devices, and they allowed for the children to be able to send messages and voice memos and pictures to their friends and family. All of these messages, videos and pictures had to be saved somewhere, and unfortunately for VTEC, they were all saved in plain text within one of these databases. So what our hacker had stumbled upon was hundreds of thousands of images of children, voice memos from children, as well as messages, their names, ages, addresses and more. But this is pretty scary stuff. Just think, if this young hacker could find the data, who else could find this data? And what could they want with it? Pictures of children? Voice memos from children? The internet is a pretty scary place, and I'd hate to think where this data could have gone if it had been into the wrong hands. Number 4. Speaking like a robot. We all know chatbots. We probably use them on a daily basis to automate small tasks or to even do some of our customer service for us. Or if you're really sad, you can talk to one like it's your friend using a service like Replica, but that's a video for a whole nother day. Well, all of these top tech startups all want a little piece of that AI chatbot pie. Particularly Meta, or what was formerly Facebook. They had created 2 AI bots with one simple outcome. They wanted these bots to be able to negotiate with each other. Back in 2017, they had created Alice and Bob to do that exact task. And here's just an excerpt of what they started to say to each other after just a few days of running. Bob: I can, I, everything else. Alice: balls have 0 to me, too. That might look like gibberish or just some garbled text, or that it got stuck in some sort of loop. And the engineers had also thought of this, but then they started to look a little bit deeper and things became a little more scary. These bots were simply given the task to continue to negotiate. They weren't told that they would have to keep in the English language, so they didn't. They actually started to create their own language and shorthand in order to negotiate a lot quicker than they could using the simple English language. But that's the scary thing. These 2 robots had created their whole entire language just to communicate with each other. This wasn't something that we could understand as humans without having to learn it. And that's a little bit scary, don't you think? These robots could have effectively communicated for a very long time without their human overlords ever knowing about it. Unfortunately, Facebook did shut down this test after just a few days, worrying about just how far this really could go. Just think, if they were already starting to communicate with each other without us knowing, what else could they be doing? And that brings me swiftly on to number 3. AI can read your mind. Back in 2017, a group of university researchers created an algorithm and an AI that could do something previously thought impossible: be able to read humans' minds. The group's new AI software took a novel approach to guessing what was going on inside the human brain, using data gathered from brain scans via MRIs to predict human thoughts by seeing how the patterns of the brain activities were produced, then reverse engineering them. Worse than that though, the study was able to detect hundreds of different patterns and reactions relating to 200 different events, both social and physical, down to the structure of the sentences being spoken. The algorithm was then simply trained on all of this data, and the scariest bit was it was able to judge and guess exactly what that human was going to say next with a 97% accuracy rate for those 200 different events. So my question is, if we can already predict our minds, how long till an AI can change them? Before we continue with this top 5 video though, I do just want to say that if this is the first time that you're seeing my face on your screen, then 1, lucky you. And 2, go down there, hit that subscribe button, smash that bell notification icon so you get notified every time I upload. But let's move swiftly on to number 2, Bon Voyage. We all probably know the story of the Samsung Note 7s, and I still think that this is one of the scariest tech horror stories going, purely because it affected so many people and was a genuine real threat for a lot of people around the world. Samsung were riding high off of the launch of all of their Samsung Galaxy devices. They were doing well, and people were loving the Note series particularly. With the release of the Note 7, people were loving it. The big screen, the massive battery life, the S Pen enhancements, this was the device to have at the time. Until one day, somebody discovered that these devices could simply explode, combusting into a ball of flames, burning whoever was holding the device, burning holes in people's pockets, and it even exploded on a plane. So exactly why did it do this? It took Samsung a long time to discover exactly what was going on, and here's a really quick breakdown of why this was happening. In short, with some of those models, there simply wasn't enough room between the heat-sealed protective pouches around the battery and its internals. In the worst case scenarios, that caused electrodes inside each battery to crumple, weaken, and separate between the electrodes, causing short-circuiting. Other cells were missing insulation tape, and some batteries had sharp protrusions inside the cell that led to damaging the separator between the anodes and the cathodes. The batteries had thin separators in general, which increased the risk of separation damage and short-circuiting. So the question is, did Samsung actually learn their lesson from the Note 7? Well, it would appear not. There are a lot of tech YouTubers out there who have a massive backlog of Samsung devices that they like to keep for preservation and testing purposes. But almost all of these YouTubers have discovered that these Samsung devices, if left, tend to bulge and start to explode. Not to the same sort of level that the Note 7 would simply explode and fireballs and death, but these devices did start to bulge with their batteries, leading to a little bit of a scary scenario in that if these devices were ever plugged in or used, there was a significant risk of short-circuiting and the same happening again. So it almost feels like Samsung haven't learned their lesson, and if you have a Samsung device, you could well be sat on a ticking time bomb. And finally, number 1, AI is starting to beat us at our own game. So a very popular thing for people to start doing these days is photo competitions. Simply going out, getting photos and entering them into competitions to decide who can take the best photo. These can be edited as well in Photoshop to give them a nice blur effect, or even change the colours and the composition as a whole. Well, last year somebody decided they wanted the AI joining the fun, so they did. They allowed this AI to create their own image based upon a simple prompt that they were given. This AI then created a beautiful image, and it was stunning, even compared to some of its competitors. What people didn't like though, is that it actually ended up winning the competition as a whole. This AI was able to create a better piece of art in general than humans ever could, and it has won a competition for it. So just how far do we go down this rabbit hole? Should we allow AIs to start entering this sort of competition? Because technically, the people who created that algorithm are still creating the piece of art. They are telling that computer what to do, but that computer is producing the art piece itself. Scary thoughts, right? How long until we're pitted against AIs in other types of competitions? So there we have it, guys. That has been my top 5 scariest tech horror stories to keep you up at night. Do you have any of your own technical horror stories? Why don't you let me know in the comments section down below? And of course, my name's been Robert, this has been Review Clue, and I will catch you in the next one. Adios.